Amsterdam, 1883. In the stables beneath the Natra Artis Magistra Zoo Library, a mare stands alone in her stall. Her coat is brown and striped only at the shoulders, fading to solid chestnut across her hindquarters. She has lived here for 16 years. When she dies on August 12th, the zookeepers write to South Africa to order a replacement. The reply arrives weeks later. There are no more. She was the last. But here's the strange part. Nobody noticed. For decades, hunters and naturalists reported seeing quaggas across southern Africa. The animal seemed abundant. How does an entire subspecies vanish while everyone believes it still exists? The answer lies in a word. The Karoo, 1836. British hunter William Cornwallis Harris rides across the semi-desert plains of what will become South Africa. The landscape stretches endlessly, broken only by scrub brush and scattered acacia. As he crests a rise, he sees them, a herd of perhaps 50 animals grazing alongside black wildebeest and ostriches. They look almost like horses, but with zebra stripes painted across their heads and necks. The rest of their bodies are solid brown. Harris writes in his journal that they are exceedingly wild and fleet, and notes their peculiar call, a sharp quagga, that echoes across the veld. The local Khoi people named the animal for this sound, Quagga. Harris kills several. He measures their bodies, sketches their patterns, marvels at their bone structure. He describes them as some of the finest hoofed animals he has ever seen, with legs that could serve as anatomical models. But he also notes something troubling. The herds are smaller than they were just years before. The animals are vanishing before the strides of civilization. He is witnessing the beginning of the end, though he doesn't yet know it. The quagga evolved at the southern edge of the zebra's range. Genetic evidence suggests the split happened recently in evolutionary terms, perhaps 200,000 years ago during a glacial period when Africa's grasslands shifted. As the plains zebra spread south from East Africa, those that reached the arid Karoo faced new pressures. The landscape was cooler, drier, more open. Tsetse flies, the blood-sucking insects that torment zebras further north, were absent here. And so natural selection began to erase the stripes. Zebra stripes likely evolved to confuse biting flies. The high contrast pattern disrupts the insect's ability to land accurately. But in the Karoo, with no flies to deter, there was no advantage to maintaining the energetically costly pigmentation pattern. Generation by generation, the stripes receded. They remained on the head and neck where identification between herd members mattered, but the body darkened to a solid brown that blended with the dust and scrub. The result was an animal that looked half-finished, as if the painter had simply stopped midway through. But the quagga was not a failed zebra. It was a perfectly adapted one. The Karoo operates on a brutal logic. Rainfall is scarce and unpredictable. The grasses that grow in the fertile lowlands remain nutritious even in winter. These are the sweetveld pastures. But the grasses in the higher rainfall areas, the sourveld, become fibrous and indigestible as they mature. Quaggas migrated between these zones, following the rains and the fresh growth. They traveled in herds of 30 to 50 individuals, moving in the company of wildebeest and ostriches. This was not accidental. The ostrich, with its height, spotted predators from a distance. The wildebeest, with its acute smell, detected lions and hyenas. The quagga, with its sharp hearing, completed the defensive triangle. Together, they survived in a land stalked by the now extinct Cape lion and packs of wild dogs. And they had another talent, one that would make them valuable to the wrong people. Boer farmers in the 19th century kept quaggas with their livestock, not as food, but as guardians. At night, when hyenas crept toward the corrals, the quaggas attacked. They bit and kicked with a ferocity that other zebras did not display. The quagga was described as the boldest and fiercest of the equine tribe. Farmers trusted them to protect horses and sheep. In London, wealthy Victorians harnessed quaggas to carriages and rode them through Hyde Park. Captain Harris himself was drawn by one in a gig, praising its temper and responsiveness. The quagga was, improbably, on the verge of domestication. It might have become Africa's riding horse. Instead, it became grain sacks. By 1850, the Karoo was being subdivided. Fences cut across migration routes. Sheep and goats claimed the sweet-veld grasses. The quagga, which had numbered in the thousands, was reclassified from wildlife to pest. Farmers shot them to eliminate competition for forage. Their hides were tough and cheap, perfect for the leather trade. Domestically, they were sewn into bags for transporting grain. Their meat, though Europeans found it gamey with yellow fat, fed farm laborers. The arrival of breech-loading rifles in the 1860s turned hunting into industry. By 1877, drought hit the Orange Free State, where the last wild population lived. The weakened herds were finished off by hunters in 1878. But reports of quaggas continued to arrive from the north. Thousands of them thriving in the Transvaal and beyond. Conservationists felt no urgency. The confusion was linguistic. Dutch settlers used quagga as a catch-all term for any zebra. The true quagga, the brown subspecies of the Karoo, was called quagga. But the fully striped Burchell's zebra further north was called bont quagga, or painted quagga, or often just quagga. This semantic overlap created a fatal illusion. Nobody realized that two different populations were being described. As the southern subspecies collapsed, the northern species thrived, and the word quagga masked the extinction happening in real time. In Amsterdam, the Arteense mare in the zoo stables had no idea she was alone. She lived quietly beneath the library for 16 years. Naturalist Tiberius Cornelis Winkler visited her often. He described her as beautiful and tame, allowing him to stroke her muzzle if the keeper brought bread. She died in August 1883. The zoo wrote to South Africa. The reply shattered the illusion. There were none left. The quagga had not moved north. It had simply ceased to exist. It took another 6 years for the reality to settle in. In 1889, surveyor Henry Anderson Bryden confirmed the worst. The southern plains were empty. The quah-ha-ha call was gone. But the quagga had one final gift to give. In 1984, a century after its extinction, a team at the University of California, Berkeley, performed an experiment that would change science. They took a scrap of dried muscle from a 140-year-old museum skin and extracted its DNA. It was the first time genetic material had been successfully recovered from an extinct animal. The results rewrote the quagga's identity. The DNA differed from living plain zebras by only 12 base substitutions. The quagga was not a separate species. It was a subspecies, a southern variant of the plains zebra. The stripes had not been lost through a separate evolutionary path. They had been turned off, suppressed by a handful of genes controlling pigmentation. This revelation sparked a controversial idea. If the quagga was just a color pattern, and if the genes for that pattern still existed scattered in living zebra populations, then perhaps extinction was not final. Perhaps the quagga could be brought back. In 1987, taxidermist Reinhold Rau launched the Quagga Project. He scoured Namibia and Etosha for plain zebras that naturally showed quagga-like traits. Reduced rear striping, brownish coats, unstriped legs. He bred them together. Their offspring were scored on appearance. Those that looked most like the museum skins were bred again. Generation by generation, the pattern re-emerged. By 2005, a zebra named Henry was born. He looked startlingly like the photographs from the 1860s. Brown body, striped head, white legs. Today, over 100 of these animals graze in reserves across the Western Cape, returned to the Karoo after 140 years. But are they quaggas? Critics call them stage props, biological facades. They argue that while the coat has been recovered, the original genome has not. The specific adaptations that allowed the historical quagga to survive the Karoo's droughts, to migrate its sweet-veld roots, to serve as livestock guardians, may be lost forever. Defenders counter that the genetic divergence was so shallow that the differences were likely minimal. They argue that restoring the visual integrity of the ecosystem has value, that these animals represent atonement for colonial destruction, and that natural selection, given time, will reshape them into true Karoo dwellers once more. The debate is unresolved, but in the Nuajar's wetlands, a brownish zebra stands in the evening light, striped only on its head. It is not the animal that died in Amsterdam, but it is not nothing either. It is a question made flesh, a reminder that extinction is not always binary, that some threads can be rewoven, and that the ghosts we summon may not be the ghosts we lost, but perhaps they are the ghosts we need. For 2 million years, they ruled the Karoo. Then, in the span of decades, they vanished, not because they were unfit, not because their world collapsed, but because a word was misunderstood and nobody realized what was being lost until the last breath left the last body in a stable beneath a library. In a city and ocean away from home,